Welcome to another Monday Mindset. I am your presenter, Vanessa Callahan. I am the founder and lead coach for Raising Our Resilience, where we help parents who get stuck with different challenges to bust through those challenges and start creating the kind of life that they have imagined for themselves and their kids. I have helped many families, dozens, now hundreds over the years, to really take a straight look at what is it that is getting in the way and tackle each of those things one at a time so that they can open up, the possibility of creating that life that they want with your kids. So whatever it is for you that comes up when I say that, just know that there are other folks who've been through it and you're not alone. So today we are talking about what conflict resolution skills that I think are most important for all kids to have. When you think of conflict resolution, a lot of times you think about sitting down and talking through a problem, and maybe there's some problem solving in there, and there's some kind of maybe apologies and some restorative, conversation that can really help. So I'm going to share 3 things that build up to that, because I think a lot of times we ask too much of our kids too soon. And what I mean by that is that we forget that our kids have limited life experience and that perhaps they're not quite equipped to sit down and have that complete conversation yet. And so what I want you to consider today is building up to those more like lengthy conversations to resolve things one skill at a time. And once these 3 skills are running strong in your family, which means, guess what, you too, then you can have that more lengthy, extensive conversation. Okay. All right. So first and foremost, there's this piece of like learning how to self-reflect enough to name at least one thing you did to maybe contribute to the conflict. And a lot of kids don't have a lot of perspective on their impact on others or what exact action or behavior led to the conflict. And so what I find myself doing a lot when I'm with young children especially, but even teens who are clamming up, who are maybe some stubborn middle childhood kids too, is helping them identify like what is it that they did to contribute. So it might be, well, you waited too long to tell us that there was a problem. That could be it. Or perhaps they made a choice that they've made before and it got the same bad result. And so they're like they're not taking in the information from last time. And that's what they should really own up to. It's like, we've been here before and you do know what happens when you don't put your things away, and people trip and fall in the hallway, or people get hurt, right? That things get lost. And so you can reiterate the piece that they can own. And the most important thing you can do, so this is do's and don'ts, is make sure that you're doing it in a way that's very like neutral and factual, and like, just like, this happened. Like, I picked up my mug, right? You left things on the floor. And the reason why we want to stay as neutral and factual as possible is we want to let them infuse the emotional tone to it themselves, whether it's a little stubborn frustration, or maybe some embarrassment. Maybe they even do have a little experience of like feeling, kind of ashamed that they forgot or something. But we don't need to add that in. Like, they'll bring it themselves. And really, we're there just to state an observation and give them some space to reflect on it and maybe perhaps own it. So that's the first thing. First skill is being able to recognize, name, and own your contribution to any kind of conflict or problem in a way that inspires them to be emotionally honest and to trust you as someone who can hold space for them to bring in their own emotional tone to the conversation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to tune into their emotions once they do arise. So step 2 would be, okay, now that we've acknowledged that you've contributed to the conflict, or we've acknowledged that there is a conflict, what's coming up for you? And when we allow space for kids to name what they're experiencing, and also support them with the language, depending on the age of your child, they may not have a lot of, feeling words, emotional words yet. And help them, this is a beautiful opportunity for them to increase their emotional intelligence, their self-awareness, their self-expression, and say that sometimes we feel more than one thing. Like we can feel angry at the person who we did, who we're in the conflict with because of what they did, but we can also feel like, embarrassed, sad, or, a little guilty about how we reacted to that. Like, and start to allow there to be more than one emotion. That's the do. The don't is to tell them how they should feel and make it a single emotion. Because oftentimes kids will say, that's not fair, or that's not what I've experienced, or you're wrong, or you don't get it, when we either miss the mark and guess the wrong emotion, or we try to oversimplify it in a complex situation. Because it is unfair if you think about it. If you say, you should feel bad about what you did to your brother. It's like the retort is often, but he started it, or but he does this to me too, right? And so when you already go in allowing and even inviting the nuance of maybe layered emotions and helping them have a chance to describe all of it and or be seen in all of it, you're setting really good groundwork for having a productive conversation in the conflict resolution piece. So describing what happened and giving them an opportunity to safely own it, helping them tune into the emotions that are coming up and allowing there to be like nuance and multiple emotions, allowing them to sort of tune into their own emotions before you tell them what they are. Those are the first two tips. Now, the third tip is a little bit more, I would say, formulaic. It's a bit of a script, but it's a tried and true one. And I think it helps two things. It helps the person who is going to hear this statement. It's called an I statement or an I message. It helps the person who hears the message to understand the impact that they had on the person. And it also gives the person who is saying the I message the opportunity to express the impact. And I think of I is, the pronoun I, but it's also, I think I stands for impact. Because oftentimes in conflicts, one of the missing pieces is that, especially for kids, is that we don't actually understand how we've impacted the other person. Like we can make assumptions and make our best guesses, and that's helpful because you're trying to perspective take. But a lot of young kids actually literally cannot cognitively take the perspective of another person until at least age 7.5. That's sort of the bell curve. And for girls, it happens a little earlier. Boys, it can happen a little later on average. So let's say between 6.5 and 8.5 is when the cognitive ability to literally empathize arrives. So this is especially a cautionary thing, excuse me, especially a cautionary thing for kids who are under that age range, to not expect them to immediately be able to understand their impact on others. You have to spell it out. Sometimes we have to actually evoke an example. And even then, they might just look at you blankly and you can still just ask them to try to do the right thing and, acknowledge that there has been some impact, even if they don't fully get it yet. When you can start like raising the bar is around 8.5, or maybe a little earlier if you see the capability show up sooner, where you say like, we actually going to take some time to really listen and think about how we've impacted this other person, and really and really wait for them to kind of slip into, oh, I get it, right? So that's one little developmental nuance I want you to know about. So back to the tip. So the statement itself is an I statement, and many of you have seen these in classrooms or maybe use them yourselves in your own conflict resolution practices. But it goes, I feel, and then you fill in how you're feeling, and then you say when, and you describe what happens. And sometimes it's when you, or when the situation is this way. And the third piece is because. So I feel blank, when blank, because blank. And really, it's a conversational tool to be able to speak from the I place. So you're like speaking for yourself, and can kind of like curb off the whole like blame game of like you this and you that, and well, you this and you that, right? It's like, okay, sure, these things happen, but what can we say that, how are we impacted by these things? So I feel sad when you don't include me on your play dates with your friends because I'm right there and your friends seem to like spending time with me, so it just feels mean. And that's the start of a real conversation. How else it could go is, you never include me in your play dates with your friends, which is, first of all, not true. Or you're being mean to me, and they don't describe how. And yeah, so this is a really helpful thing to have a little template. And what I can tell you is that in my many years of teaching preschool, but especially lower elementary, 6 to 9 years old, I would actually have on the wall this prompt. And it was like, on a nice little background. I would like, put some like colorful paper behind it and write it really neatly. It's easy to read. And it just said, I feel blank when blank because blank. Now it seems so simple and like not a big deal, but I will tell you, I've seen probably at least 300 times over my 10 years. So 30 times a year. A kid would go up to that and think through their I statement before they went and had that more difficult conflict resolution conversation. And at first, I have to prompt the kids to do that. It's like, well, why don't you like, let's take some time to just get in front of the I statement poster and see what comes up for you, so you can get a sense of what you might want to say to the person in this conflict resolution process. And they would eventually they'll go up to it by themselves, think it through, and then go straight to their friend that they have a conflict with and say their I statement. I've also seen kids invite another kid they wanted to solve a problem with and say, can we go share I statements? And they would walk over to the I statement poster, look at it, and take turns filling in the blanks until they felt like they were in a more productive place. And then if they got stuck, they could always come and get a parent or a teacher, parent volunteer or teacher. They could bring it to a class meeting. There's always a way to go forward from there. But a lot of times it was enough. So they would own it, they would name their emotion, and then they would fill in the I statement and share that. And what a great groundwork for being able to solve conflicts. And I would just invite you to think about people in your life who have this skill, who can speak from the I place, who can name their emotions, who can describe what happened and also own their part in it, and how you feel when you're around those people in your life. Do they give you a sense of safety? Do you feel more like you can open up to them more? I mean, just curious if someone specific comes to mind, and really notice like what is the atmosphere around this person who has this skill set and is dedicated to this kind of practice of conflict resolution. And now let's also flip the coin and think of someone in your life who does not have these skills. Someone comes to mind for me right away. And how do you feel around them when they're not able to own it, name their emotions, and move towards a productive conversation coming from that I statement place? And what kind of atmosphere do they have around them? Like, can you bring up hard topics? Can you stand up for yourself? Can you ask for what you need? Can you solve problems when they come up productively without somebody having to be right and wrong, right? So now invite you to think about what kind of atmosphere would you like to create around yourself for your children? And what kind of atmosphere would you like your children to be able to create in their relationships? So you can see why I decided to emphasize these 3 skills today, because of how crucial they are in creating an atmosphere where secure attachment, attunement, and long-lasting, trusting, safe relationships are possible. So thank you for listening in. I would love always to hear if anybody has a specific takeaway. Throw it in the chat, throw it in the comments, either here on Zoom or on the Facebook group or later on YouTube. I always like to hear comments and questions, and we always do get notifications when those come in, so I can circle back and address them either in the comments or in the future Monday Mindset. All right, everybody, really lovely to see you. I'll just leave another maybe 30 seconds to go ahead and throw some comment or chat. If for the live folks right now, if you're listening to the replay, just drop it in the replay comments, something that you took away or a question you have. And it's been so great to have a chance to serve you today powerfully, as the stuff is powerful. And I want to also just give a little plug for the fact that we are in enrollment right now for our year-long program. And what the year-long program looks like is we work on these types of skills, one subject at a time each month. And then we also do a deeper dive into emotional mastery and emotional mastery. And you get to travel with a cohort of other like-minded families who are working on similar goals, which is an incredible way to accelerate growth and breakthroughs for the family and for to be able to be a part of something bigger than what your family's up to. If that's something you're interested in, I do have some spots on my calendar right now for a complimentary 30-minute consultation where we can at least talk through some strategies, have you take a parenting strengths quiz, see what your learning plan would be, and see if it's a fit for you to hop into the program or not while doors are still open. This January cohort is going to be powerful. I'm giving workshops at 8 different schools, and a lot of folks are showing interest on the back end of that to, you know, and check out the program. So it's going to be a really good year. I'm really excited about. We have a lot of returning families too. We have 20 families that are enrolled from last year, and some of them in their second, third, and fourth years of mentorship. Because once you've got a mentor and a community behind your back, like there's so much is possible, more than you can even think of today. So lots of love to each and every one of you. Hopefully this has inspired you, and enjoy your time with your children. And we'll see you next time. Lots of love. Bye for now.